Hi, I'm Pastor Kurt, and this is your 5-minute Bible study. Today, we're going to be looking at 2 Samuel chapter 11. This is the story of David and Bathsheba. Now, let's set the scene here a little bit. Saul has committed suicide, and David is king. Now, things have been going pretty well for David so far. People have been rallying around him, he's got the support of the people. But in the very first verse of this chapter, we hear, in the spring, the time when kings go out to battle, David was in Jerusalem. Now, at first, that line just doesn't really seem to matter, but it said that this is the time when kings should be out in the battlefield. But David is not. David is not doing what kings are supposed to do, in more than one way, as we'll see. David then spots Bathsheba taking a bath on a roof of a nearby building. Now, to us, that might sound bizarre, right? Who among us are going to take a bath on your roof? But back then, that's just the way that the buildings were structured. They had flat roofs, they had the ritual baths. It was just a normal custom back then. In a way, today, it's like peeping in a window of someone else's house. They think they're having a private moment, but somebody's watching them. This is what was going on for Bathsheba. David was watching her. And David wants to know who she is. He finds out who she is, and he demands that she be brought to him. Well, he's the king. You can't refuse the king. So she's brought to him, and David has his way with her. She gives no consent. She gives no permission. He just does it. Well, later, he receives a message that she's pregnant. And so David wants to cover his tracks because he knows that he shouldn't have done what he did. Her husband, Uriah, is out in the battle. So David calls for Uriah to come home, which he does. And then David tries to convince Uriah to go home to Bathsheba. But Uriah refuses. He basically says, all of my friends, all of the other soldiers, they're out on the battlefield. Why should I be allowed to come home and they have to stay out there? David even tries to get Uriah drunk in order to make him go home to Bathsheba. But Uriah still refuses. Well, David then sends Uriah back out to the battle with a letter to the general saying, put Uriah in the front line so that he's killed. And so it happens. After Uriah is killed, David then takes Bathsheba as his own wife. Now, this is a famous story, but we need to notice something here. King David, the most well-respected king in Israelites' history, broke all kinds of the commandments here in this one moment. There was coveting, there was stealing, there was murdering, all sorts of stuff. Even though King David is the most well-respected king in their history, he was flawed, he was broken, he was sinful, he was human. This is what God warned the people about when they asked for a king a long time ago. He said kings are going to abuse their power, kings are not perfect. Here we see that playing out in David. Now, especially in this moment with Bathsheba, this is the turning point for the monarchy. So far, things have been going overall pretty well. We've had King Saul and we've had King David. But now, after this moment with Bathsheba, the monarchy is going to go downhill and it will never recover. When we make choices, they don't just affect us. They affect the people around us, and they affect the generations after us. In that moment, when David saw Bathsheba, he was just thinking about himself and what he wanted. He wasn't thinking about Uriah, and he wasn't thinking about his kingdom or the kings who would come after him. This moment with Bathsheba is an important moment in Israelite history, because it makes you wonder, what would their history have been like had David not done this? If you can try to imagine an alternative timeline in which David didn't do this with Bathsheba, What would the monarchy look like then? It's a fun thought experiment, but this is what happened. And it's a powerful reminder to us to think about our choices. Yes, all of us are sinful and broken and human like David, but we need to remember that our choices have consequences. Our choices affect other people. Our choices can ripple out for future generations. Thankfully, though, God was still with David. God was still with God's people, and God is still with us. So even when you mess up, God still forgives you. God still loves you, and God is still working through you. There's your 5-minute Bible study for the day. Please remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Thanks.